After many years of careful analysis and methodical practice, Peter Ouspensky, who is the man who wrote this book, finally put on paper all the lessons that he learned from his spiritual teacher, a man called G.I. Gurdjieff. And this book is the result of that. Written in the 40s, the book has grown to become a classic of spiritual literature. And in this episode, we're gonna dive right in and we're gonna analyze a few excerpts from it that I have selected. But as always, we'll do that from a very specific perspective, which is that of your own personal and spiritual growth. What is the message, the lesson that is in this book that you can take with you for your own personal and spiritual development? That's the question that we're going to try to answer. And stay till the very end, because I'll tell you more about how you can go about finding your soul. That's the main advice of the book, to find your soul. How can you do that? Stay till the very end and you'll know. There's 4 things in you. There's your body, but there's so much more than your body. Don't fall into the idea of thinking that all you are is just a bag of skin, water, and bones. There's more than that. Number 2, your emotions, the emotional activity. You also have your mind, your thoughts, the voice in your head, commenting on the things that are happening around you, thinking about the past, the future, all of that, your thoughts, the voice that's talking in your head. But basically, all this is about finding that 4th thing to who you are, which is your soul, your essence. And according to the teaching, that's the most important thing to find in your life. And basically, these 400 pages revolve around the idea of finding it. Hello there, my name is Alex. Welcome to another video. This time we have another great book called In Search of the Miraculous, The Teachings of G.I. Gurdjieff, written by P.D. Ouspensky. It's a very dense book. It's 400 pages of very fine print. And this was written in 1949. It's a non-fictional book where the author, Ouspensky, he recounts his experiences with his teacher, a man called G.I. Gurdjieff, who we can describe as a mystic. Some people would describe as a spiritual teacher. Other people would describe him as a guru, an enlightened person. This book is Ouspensky's interpretation of Gurdjieff's teaching. And it's a very, very deep teaching. I feel a bit out of my depth here, like they say here in England, which means I feel somewhat inadequate communicating a teaching that at times I hardly understood myself, because this is very, very deep. There's a lot here that is very complex. I would say it's a mixture of complex ideas about the nature of the universe, the nature of the human being, and all of that. But as you can see here, I've marked a lot of sections in it that have been profound to me and to my own personal development that I am going to try to share with you today. As I told you, the book recounts Ouspensky's experiences with this man, Gurdjieff, who became his teacher. Ouspensky became part of the groups that would gather around Gurdjieff and learn from Gurdjieff's ideas about the world, the nature of the human being, and how to be the best version of oneself, really. So that's what we'll be diving into. The teaching of Gurdjieff is called the Fourth Way. The Fourth Way. And basically the name comes from one of the core ideas, that is finding the fourth dimension of consciousness. We can put it like that. The fourth school of thought. The first one being the one that concerns itself with the body, with the physical body. Maybe medicine falls into it, traditional medicine at least, that only focuses on the physicality of the human being. Then you have the second way, which is the emotions. Then the third way, which is the mind, thought. And then you have the fourth way, which concerns your spiritual essence. Essence is a word that Ouspensky uses. We can call it soul. I think soul is another word that he uses. Being, your beingness. So the fourth way is all about finding that four component to who you are, right? So we can say there's four things in you. There's your body, but there's so much more than your body. Don't fall into the idea of thinking that all you are is just a bag of skin, water, and bones. There's more than that. What else is there to you than your body? You have number two, your emotions, the emotional activity. We all are emotional beings. We feel sad, happy, angry, elated. All of these things are part of who you are. You also have your mind, your thoughts, the voice in your head that some of you forgot you have. This commentary in your head running all the time, commenting on the things that are happening around you, thinking about the past, the future, trying to plan how you're going to solve a problem, what are you going to do about it, how are you going to prevent certain unlikely scenarios from happening. All of that, your thoughts, the voice that's talking in your head, that's part of who you are. But basically all this is about finding that fourth thing to who you are, which is your soul, your essence. And according to the teaching, that's the most important thing to find in your life. And basically these 400 pages revolve around the idea of finding it and helping you find it, which is what we're going to do. So again, this book, why we analyze it, we don't analyze it in the same way we would analyze a book in a literature class at university. We use it as a tool whereby we can work on ourselves and find this fourth dimension of consciousness in ourselves, basically. Yes, so let's see if I can find something good for us to take as a starting point. Right, so Ouspensky is recalling a lecture that Gurdjieff gave, where he said, the first reason for man's inner slavery, obviously here man, he's addressing both man and woman, human being, we can say. The first reason for man's inner slavery is his ignorance, and above all, his ignorance of himself. Without self-knowledge, without understanding the working and functions of his machine, man cannot be free. He cannot govern himself, and he will always remain a slave, and the plaything of the forces acting upon him. This is why in all ancient teachings, the first demand at the beginning of the way to liberation was, know thyself. One of the main themes of Gurdjieff's teaching that you need to know about is this one of inner slavery. He uses prison as an analogy, and he says one of the things that a human being needs to do to get out of prison, the first thing is realize that they are in prison. If you think you are free, no escape is possible. And this inner slavery that we live under, that most of us don't know about it, is what he's talking about. And he's saying the cause of the first reason for the inner slavery is man's ignorance, above all his ignorance of himself. So he's saying, you don't know yourself. You don't know yourself. You think you know yourself, but you don't know yourself. If you would know yourself, you wouldn't live in suffering. You wouldn't live imprisoned. What's an example of the prison is your thought. The hell that your thoughts create. So much worry, so much anxiety, so much depression in our lives. Why? Just because our minds won't shut up. What creates your anxiety? I'm a psychotherapist. I work a lot with anxious people, depressed people. What's the cause of their depression, of their anxiety? This voice that won't stop putting them down, won't stop worrying, complaining, criticizing. And he's saying the cure to that is knowing yourself. Know yourself. Without self-knowledge, without understanding the working and functions of his machine, man cannot be free. Now, there are two types of self-knowledge. One, we can say self-knowledge with a capital S. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about self-knowledge with lowercase s. That's what he describes as understanding the working and functions of your machine. What's your machine? Your mind. So self-knowledge with lowercase s means understanding your mind, understanding the patterns underneath the workings of your mind, the patterns of worrying, the patterns of looking for the future for fulfillment, the patterns of putting yourself down, or the patterns of comparison, comparing yourself to others. How much do we do that all day? We compare ourselves to everyone around us. We want to be better than them. Keeping the past alive for the sense of an identity. All of these are patterns that he says we need to know about, we need to be familiar with them if we want to be free. The mind creates an identity of who you are as you grow older that we can call the ego, the small self, the little me. And the mind is always trying to protect that little me, that small sense of identity. How does it protect it? By keeping it alive, by utilizing certain patterns that keep the identity in place. What are these patterns? Defensiveness, judging others. When you look at someone and you think, I'm better than them, my bicep is bigger than theirs, I am stronger than them, or I am more intellectual than them, I am faster than them, I am better than them. And you aggrandize yourself. This is a pattern that we all have. Don't feel guilty about it. It's not selfish. It's just the nature of the human mind. And if you want to know yourself, if you want to free yourself from inner slavery, you need to start bringing more awareness to these patterns. At present, these patterns, they run automatically. You don't even know that you have this voice in your head that is constantly preserving your small identity, your little me. I need to be bigger than others. I need to defend myself. And I criticize others. So what he's saying is, bring more awareness to the processes by which your mind creates and sustains this sense of identity. Be more aware of your thoughts. Increase your awareness, your internal awareness. What are the thoughts that are coming to my head at this precise moment? Can I be aware of them rather than then just running automatically? That's the first step. Awareness. See, understand, see for yourself how your mind creates your suffering by worrying, by being scared, afraid, what if scenarios, or keeping the past alive and playing the same old memories over and over again, over and over again. The first step to knowing yourself, to freeing yourself, is internal awareness. Now, one of the main concepts of Gurdjieff's teaching is the concept of self-remembering. And he says, if you ask a man, this is again Gurdjieff speaking, if you ask a man whether he can remember himself, he will of course answer that he can. If you tell him that he cannot remember himself, he will either be angry with you or he will think you're an utter fool. The whole of life is based on this, the whole of human existence, the whole of human blindness. If a man really knows that he cannot remember himself, he is already near to the understanding of his being. So he's saying the first step is be honest with yourself and confess, acknowledge the fact that you cannot remember yourself. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that you can remember yourself, because you can't. You can't. The reality of the matter is you're lost. You're lost in your mind. We all are. Our mind is so active, it's almost impossible not to be. And basically what he's saying is, start by acknowledging that. If you think of yourself as free, then there's no escape. But when you start being honest and saying, actually, I can't remember myself, I'm lost in my mind constantly, That's the first step to your understanding of your being. Now, Ouspensky is recounting his reflections on Gurdjieff's teaching of self-remembrance. And he says, the first impression was that attempts to remember myself or to be conscious of myself, to say to myself, I am walking, I am doing, continually to feel this I, stopped thought. So he's saying when he started putting it into practice, this concept, this practice of remembering himself, he said, as much as I put an effort, when I started putting an effort on remembering, I am walking, I am doing this, I am talking, he says, one of the first things I realized, I stopped thought. And he continues, when I was feeling I couldn't think nor speak. Even sensations became dimmed. Also, one could only remember oneself in this way for a very short time. So he's saying remembering yourself is something difficult to do. You can only do that for a very short time to start with. And when you do it, you're not thinking. So it's a process that happens behind thought. And now he describes the act of self-remembering. When I observe something, my attention is directed towards what I observe. A line with one arrowhead. I will draw it here or somewhere. When at the same time I try to remember myself, my attention is directed both towards the object observed and towards myself. A second arrowhead appears on the line. So the observation is not only externally. I not only observe the camera, I also observe myself observing the camera. I observe the act of observation. I observe my being. My attention is not only there, my attention is also here. Reminds me of a quote. I think this was Epictetus, a philosopher. He said, this is paraphrasing, but he says something like, you need to be someone who with one eye observes the world and with the other observes things eternal. That's Epictetus' words. We can change that. With one eye, you observe externals, form. This can also include mental form, your thoughts, your emotions. With one eye, you observe form, physical forms, mental forms. By observing mental forms, we mean being aware of them, listening to the chatter in your head. And with the second eye, you observe things eternal. You observe yourself. And this is similar to self-remembering, which means, obviously the I thing is a metaphor, but another way of putting it is we divide your attention in two. Half of it is aimed at your mind, things outside you, your job, what you're doing, whatever it is happening around you, your senses. The other half of your attention is reserved for observing the observer. And when you're in a state like this, Ouspensky says, it's very difficult. You can only do it for a very short time. And when you do this, you stop thought. It's a state of concentration. You cannot remember yourself if you're thinking. All of your attention is required. I always use the analogy of a room. Let's take this room as an example. What is the essence of the room? Let's pose that question. What is the essence of the room? And I look around and I see, okay, what about the content of the room? The microphone here that you can see, the camera that I can see, the books, the paintings, the sofa, the TV, the plants. Are those the essence of the room? No, they are not. They are the content of the room, right? So if the things that are in the room are not the essence of the room, what is the essence of the room? What about the roof, the floor, the walls, the windows? Are those the essence of the room? You guessed that right. No, they are not. They are the boundaries of the room. So what then is the essence of the room? The essence of the room is the space that allows everything to be. And to that, we never pay attention. We never pay attention to space. But the space is always there. And without the space, nothing else could be here. And a similar thing happens inside you. You have the content of who you are, your thoughts, your emotions, your ego, the chatter on your mind, sense perceptions. All of that is content. Then you have your boundaries, your physical boundaries, the identity that you have of yourself, the ego that we were talking about. This is what in your mind defines you or physically defines you. But there's more to you than that. Your essence. That space, we can say, which allows everything to be there. If you have such a noisy mind, there needs to be something that allows those thoughts to be there. Have you ever thought about that? And this is what he calls your essence. And this is what you observe when you remember yourself. When you know that spiritual, formless side of who you are, that's capital S, self-knowledge. You know the space where things happen, which is who you are in your essence. Gurdjieff is teaching about what he calls essence. It must be understood that a man consists of two parts, essence and personality. Essence in man is what is his own. Personality in a man is what is not his own. Not his own means what has come from outside, what he has learned or reflects, all traces of exterior impressions left in the memory and in the sensations, all words and movements that have been learned, all feelings created by imitation. All this is not his own. All this is personality. A small child has no personality as yet. He is what he really is. Essence is the truth in man. Personality is the false. So if we take the ego, what he calls the personality, he's saying your personality is not yourself, it's not who you are. It's what you inherited from what you experienced. If you experienced difficult, traumatic, aggressive experiences during your childhood, your personality is going to be a certain way than if you're someone who experienced different experiences. If you're someone who experienced praise and kindness and appreciation from your parents, your personality is more likely to be confident. Whereas if you experienced criticism and harshness from your parents, your personality is going to be doubtful and insecure. So what he's trying to tell us is, don't be too bothered by personality. Focus more on finding that which is truly yourself, which is your essence. In order to be able to attain this, he's talking about finding your essence, or at least begin to attain it. A man must die. That is, he must free himself from 1,000 petty attachments and identifications which hold him in the position in which he is. These I's must die in order that the big I may be born. So, in other words, he's saying, if you want to get closer to your essence, you need to let your personality die. Now, die is a very drastic idea. He doesn't mean die as in commit suicide or anything. He's using that as a metaphor. We can say, stop feeding your personality. How do you feed your personality? By how much attention you give to your thoughts, how much importance you give to your worries. What if I need to think about this? I really need to think about this. Okay, what if this happens? What if I lose my job? Okay, well, then I will end here, and then maybe I'll have to apply to this job that I don't like, and then maybe I'll have to resign myself and work in a bar or something. The chatter in our heads is so active, so difficult to stop, because you are feeding it. You are giving it your energy. It needs energy. Where does it get its energy, this personality, this small sense of self? Where does it get its energy? It gets its energy from you, from your identification with it. What does this mean? You identify with your thoughts. You think your thoughts are yourself. But they are not. Your thoughts are not your own, which means your mind thinks in the way that it does because of the things that happened to you from the past, because of the things that you internalized. And that's why your mind thinks the way it does. And you make it worse by identifying with it, by taking every thought so seriously. I really need to think about this, and then I think about it. Okay, what if my girlfriend leaves me? Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to be ruined. You are doing that. You are energizing that with your identification. So the first step is realize your mind, you're not your mind. The chatter in your head has not much to do with who you are. Obviously, it convinces you, because if you think you are your thoughts, then you take your thoughts so seriously, and you sustain this identity of yourself as a personality. But he's saying, in order to know your essence, you must die. Your personality must die. How do you kill it? How do you make this happen? You starve it. You stop putting so much attention on these patterns of self-identification, criticism. I'm better than them, I'm not as good as them. That's one of the mechanisms that you should renounce. Obviously, your mind takes such a pleasure from those mechanisms, such a pleasure from feeling I'm better than him, I'm faster than him, I'm stronger than him, I can lift more weights than him, I am more famous than him, I have more followers on my Instagram account, I have more money than them, my house is bigger, my car is bigger. I am more spiritual. My values are better. My political party is better. The superficial part of you takes such pleasure from comparison that you have to renounce that pleasure. That's the challenge. Next time that you find yourself criticizing another, take a step back. Realize that you have the possibility, the ability to not criticize another. That requires a certain sense of humility, of saying, I just heard my mind criticizing this person. What's that all about? You can laugh about the patterns that are so ridiculous sometimes. Humor is a great way to starve your mind, to break your identification with your thoughts. Be more curious about the thoughts that run through your head. Be more humorous about them. Don't take them so seriously. The mind thinks stupid stuff. The mind is always trying to pretend you are better than others. But if you catch yourself doing that, you can stop that. And you can make more of an effort to remember yourself than to pay so much attention to your mind. It's an either this or that kind of situation. Either you give all of your attention to your mind and you feed your personality, your ego, or you starve it from your attention and you take your attention out of that. Where do you place your attention? In the present moment. It's either you're lost in thought or you inhabit the present moment. But that's difficult because that requires your attention. And you look around. Can you look around? Can you feel your body? Instead of thinking what you're going to do after this or how difficult your life is going to be if your girlfriend leaves you. Instead of doing that, take your attention, take possession of your attention and use it for something constructive. Which is the only constructive thing is really paying attention to the present moment. Because that's the only place where you will be able to find your essence. It starts with paying attention to your surroundings. And then you pay attention to your body. And then you pay attention to your being, to your existence. You exist. You're a point of consciousness that exists. That's a miracle in itself. That you are conscious. What's behind your eyes? What is this being that can see this video that I am addressing? Are you there? Are you there? And you're going to say, yes, I'm here. Good, okay. Pay attention to that. That's how you starve your personality. The personality has all sorts of games and manipulations to convince you that what it has to say is so important. But it's not. It's not. When a man begins to know himself a little, he will see in himself many things that are bound to horrify him. I told you, the nature of the mind is to think stupid things. So long as a man is not horrified at himself, he knows nothing about himself. Well, I'm conscious of time. Let's see if I can find one more to finish with.
One eternity later.
Right. So he has this exercise. Let's finish with something practical. The exercise is called the stop exercise. And they take it very seriously here. So they would gather in groups, as I told you, to learn from Gurdjieff. And Gurdjieff had this power that whenever he would shout, stop, everyone needed to stop. And freeze. And they took this very seriously, even to the point that they would put their lives in danger. I think there is an example somewhere of an instance where they were swimming in the sea in turbulent waters when stop was shouted, and everyone stopped right where they were. And some of them started drowning, but they were so serious that they didn't move. And even if they were going to drown, they wouldn't fail at the exercise. I don't want you to do that, of course. Don't put your life in danger, but what's the rationale behind the stop exercise? As Ouspensky explained, he shares his reflections on how the exercise helped him. It made him much more aware of his body, much more present. It put him out of his mind because he knew, I need to be conscious of my movements, because anytime the stop signal can be activated. And if I'm not careful, if I have, something hot against my lips, I'm drinking coffee or something, I need to be careful. I need to be very aware the movements that I am making so that I am not put in a difficult position if the stop signal is activated. So the result of this is body awareness. He gained an incredible amount of sensitivity in his movements. It's like a cat. It's a picture of a cat I'm having. I don't know if you have a cat at home, but if you do, you know what I mean. How cats move. A cat wouldn't have a problem with the stop exercise because they are always so careful. Every movement is so precise. So they are so fully in their movements. Not like us. We're not fully in our movements. We're somewhere else. We're in tomorrow. We are in 10 years from today in our heads. And there's hardly any percentage of attention left for us to pay attention to what we're doing. So the lesson of the stop exercise is be more present, be more conscious of your surroundings, yourself, your movements, your hands. He gave us many exercises. This is Ouspensky talking. He, of course, is Gurdjieff. He gave us many exercises for gradually relaxing the muscles, always beginning with the muscles of the face, as well as for feeling the hands, the feet, the fingers, and so on at will. And I think this is what I want to end with. Returning to your body. That's where the teaching is. The teaching is not here. The teaching is inside you. And if you want to listen to it, you need to learn to continuously start paying more attention to what's going on inside you. So let's take 1 minute to finish with that. And pay attention to your body, your hands. Don't move your hands. Just make the effort to feel your hands without moving them, but feel the presence of your hands. Can you feel them? A certain degree of alertness is required. Initially, your mind is going to say, "What's this? Feel my hands?" But at some point, you're going to be able to recognize it. Oh, yes, now I know. I can feel my hands. I can feel the aliveness that is in my hands. Your feet. Your chest. Can you be quiet enough to hear your heart beat? Or to sense it, at least. All of this requires attention, requires your presence. If you want to find your essence, attention is the main tool that you're going to need. And initially you start by paying attention to the things around you more and more, to your body more and more. And slowly, gradually, you start finding the observer and then underneath it all. That part of you that's timeless, that's always there. That's what this book is all about. And that's what I think work on yourself is all about, to find yourself. So, I hope this has been useful, helpful. I'm conscious there's so much more here. Who knows, I might do another video of this in the future. But if you've liked this video, if you're taking something from it with you, I would appreciate it if you can support my channel by liking or subscribing or sharing or whatever way you feel more comfortable supporting me with. And yeah, the best way you can support this is by putting these teachings into practice, really. So I really hope that you can find the time to do that and to pay more attention. That's it for now. Thank you so much. I hope to see you on the next video, and I hope you're well. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.